there is a growing fear that the UK could face nuclear threats from Russia.
The Home Secretary Ben Wallace has made a last-minute trip to Washington for emergency talks following Putin's threats and Iran's recent support for going nuclear.
Well, let's bring in the defence editor at the Evening Standard, Robert Fox, to explain all of this. I mean, we are seeing a worrying escalation, aren't we, in the kind of behaviour from Putin, martial law yesterday being imposed in those 4 annexed regions, and then this emergency summit in Washington with fears specifically about possible nuclear strikes in the Black Sea.
We have to look at what the real fire is beneath this smoke. There is no doubt that Putin himself is in quite a bit of difficulty. There's a bit of a sort of weird bunker mentality about some of this stuff. The hints about a possible nuclear firepower demonstration over the Black Sea, the capping of the mobilisation, saying 300,000, no, I can make it work with 200,000. He's in real difficulty with the ground war, but he has found a way through where he can really hurt Kiev, the Kiev regime and Ukraine, and that is striking at infrastructure. With Zelensky saying yesterday 30% of electricity power facilities were out, and this is due to cheap drones, Iranian drones, 2 classes, but principally the Shahed 136, which have been incredibly effective, and the West have been asleep at the wheel in providing adequate air defence, which, frankly, Zelensky has been asking since April, May. Advisors like Jack Wackling of our Royal United Services Institute coming back in June and saying you really have to have these defences against whatever they're going to throw at the civilian infrastructure in the big city.
But wouldn't that put them in direct conflict? Wasn't their argument for not doing that they would be put in direct conflict with Russia?
Well, they're in direct conflict with Russia anyway, and that is, if I may say so, rather a strange argument, but it's been the argument all along. And I think it's been the problem with Blinken, Secretary of State, and the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan. 1 foot on the accelerator, 1 foot on the brake. Really, we are seeing that Ukraine needs adequate air defence, and you're quite right. The one thing that America was very loath to do was to really upgrade Ukraine's air force, which is what you need to shoot down aircraft which are launching these very effective air-launched missiles. But the cheap, the FT's got a hilarious headline, if it wasn't so grim today. Oh, you know, that Russia's effort is much cheaper than the air defence of the drones. One of the sinister things that you alluded to is it does seem there's quite a substantial element of the Iranian Republican Guard Corps in Crimea now, training the Russian pilots of the drones, if not driving the drones themselves. So, as you rightly say, Iran is in the picture. But I'm sure you want to ask me about the nuclear threat too.
Yes, we do, really, because I think a lot of people at home read the words, nuclear strike in the Black Sea, and they start to imagine nuclear fallout. And obviously people want to know what it means for them here in the UK. Well,
the thing about Putin, which is where he is very clever and it's typical, he has never actually said, I am considering a nuclear strike. He has not spoken those words. It all means possible. You know what? Nuclear forces, ground forces on alert, special drills, the exercises going on at the moment. The problem with it, there's no such thing in today's world as a tactical nuclear strike. Because if you use one of these localised weapons, that both the fallout, but particularly the electromagnetic pulses that come from it, make it a big area weapon. It causes a lot of destruction, not least, very likely, to the side that launches them in the first place. It is a card that he holds up his sleeve, and it's stronger the more he doesn't use it, or as long as he doesn't use it. What I think he is going to do, and what we fear, I've frankly been writing a lot about it, not too many others, because is the attack on infrastructure. And it looks as if the threat to infrastructure, was it Russia that was doing the 2 pipelines? We know that they've been surveying and drones over the Norwegian oil fields, the main Norwegian gas line and the oil lines into the UK coming into the East Coast. We've seen a lot of this activity. And we know that Russia has a fully swept up underwater sabotage unit called GUGI, G-U-G-I, operating out of the Arctic. And they've been around in British waters, so much so that the Irish Navy has really caused a fuss about this, saying, wake up, we're not part of NATO, but we're part of the NATO-EU alliance. Yeah. We've got to get real about this. And they've been backed to the hilt by the Norwegians. The Norwegians, the Danes, the Swedes are extremely worried about it. And yet we had a speech from the head of the UK Armed Forces at the Mansion House yesterday, Admiral Sir Tony Radakin, and it was all tilt to the Pacific, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. People in his staff are saying, no, you and NATO and our allies want you to picket the North Sea now because this is coming our way. There's been about a dozen attacks or feint attacks in under the last year on these facilities.
You're saying they need to wake up?
Yeah.
Look, really briefly, because we do have to move on, but I just want to know, do you think, in your assessment, would President Putin be looking at the chaos in Westminster, the navel-gazing, the infighting, and relishing all of that?
He's got a pretty good obsession about the UK anyway. He got very upset about the Queen's funeral and thought that he might sort of sneak in there. So it was alleged. And the UK really does get it, because it has been a principal power. It's been a principal guarantor, by the way, going back to 1994, 1991, of Ukraine's independence. And he will look at that, because this brings back the whole question of how much has Russia and the troll factory been interfering with internal UK politics. Can I just speak a personal note?
Yeah.
I've come up on the victim list of the hit list of the troll factory because I was accused with a colleague and friend of conniving at the kind of thing that led to the attack on the Kerch Bridge. Can I put my hand up and say I had nothing to do with the explosion on the Kerch Bridge? But you can see that this is ramping up again. The pro-Russian lobby on my Twitter feed, coming through social media, has suddenly burst into life in the last two or 3 weeks in a way that they've been quite dormant through most of the late summer and autumn.
Yeah, Russia on the attack, underwater and online.
Yeah, and against our Fox.
And against our Fox, indeed, against our Robert Fox, yeah, indeed. Or the Evening Standard's Robert Fox.
Exactly.
Yeah, good to see you, Robert. Thank you very much for that analysis.